Welcome, everyone. My name is Lisette London, and I am so excited for today's episode because we are talking about trauma and how it looks in terms of community, spirituality, religion, all of that within our within communities that have stigmas, right? Within the communities that don't understand how to adapt a holistic approach to the trauma that they have experienced in a generational sense, right? In the transgenerational sense. And so today we have our guest, our guest speaker, I guess, our interviewee, Mr. Xavier Justice, and he is a chaplain. And I'm going to go ahead and read some of his bio. This man is amazing, and I'm going to then let him speak for a little bit, and then I'm going to introduce our Mrs. Jenny Brackman, who is from also the Forward Facing Trauma Institute. So Mr. Xavier Justice is from Washington, D.C., and he served honorably in the United States Army at the 101st Airborne Division in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's awesome. Mr. Justice holds a Master's of Art in Christian Counseling and is presently matriculating in the Doctor of Education in Community Care and Counseling degree with a cognate, right? Cognate? I don't know. Cognate. Listen, Spanglish. You all know people. Listen, my family. The English is there. In traumatology. Okay. He holds a certificate in Theology and Ministry from Princeton Theological Seminary. Let that sink in, people. This man he knows his stuff. Mr. Justice is certified as a master clinical traumatologist with the Green Cross Academy of Traumatology and is a peer reviewer and contributor editor with the Practitioner Scholar, Journal of International Trauma Training Institute. That's amazing. Mr. Justice is a diplomat with the American Association of Pastoral Counselors, a psychotherapist with the Association of Clinical Pastoral Education, and a certified group psychotherapist supervisor with the American Group Psychotherapist Association. My Lord, yes. Yes, he has completed the Spiritually Integrated Psychotherapy Training with the ACPE, and he is a board certified Christian counselor, certified PTSD specialist, and brain health coach with the American Association of Christian Counselors. Mr. Justice currently serves as the chaplain to the board ministry at his church. Mr. Justice is a chaplain to the Congregational Consultation Community of Practice with the Association of Clinical Pastoral Education, and he serves as a chaplain to the South Atlantic Community of Chaplains of the Spiritual Care Association. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. A lot of hats there.
Listen,
I'm like, who is that person? Where is he? Where is that individual?
Your history and your work that you've done has been amazing, and I'm honored to have you here today. And I'm also going to go ahead and introduce Mrs. Jenny Brackman. She is, like I said before, she is the CEO or vice president or president of the vice president of Forward Facing Institute. And she was in our other episode with Dr. Gentry, and it was amazing episode. And we just have her here today because both Ms. Brackman and Mr. Justice are part of the Forward Facing Institute. And we are just connecting with them because we want to know more about the work that they're going to be doing, the work that they're already doing within their own sphere, but also because we want to go ahead and talk about why why getting a certificate from the Forward Facing Institute is so important when looking at individuals, if that's who you want to work with, but also if you want to work with communities who have been exposed to generational traumas. And currently, too many triggers to count, right? And so this certificate that is they're putting out is amazing. I'm so excited. I'm in part of the cohort because I'm like, give me. As everybody knows, I am a lover of education when it comes to trauma and understanding how it can be incorporated not only for ourselves as we become advocates for what we need, but also how we can implement it to others so that we can be advocates for others who are in need of this. And so this is what this conversation is, addressing what a true community resiliency approach is while incorporating a traumatic or trauma exposed, trauma informed approach. So tell me, I mean, I read about you, Mr. Justice. You want to become Mr. Justice, Chaplain Justice, Xavier?
And
Okay.
I'll interrupt for 1 second because that was such a formal bio. I mean, letters and names mean nothing if you're not just a legit good guy. And I will say I've, gotten to know Xavier over the past 6 months, and he's just a legit good guy and has become what I would consider a good friend. So
yes. Listen, I've only talked to him
Thank
for 40 minutes prior to this, and and I feel like we are best friends. I mean, he may not feel that way, but I feel like we're best friends because I literally just got into all his life history and then just decided to be like, I'm just your accountability partner. And he didn't ask for it, but here we are. So
I need it.
So tell me about what got you to this track of understanding or wanting to work in the field of trauma.
One of the things that I notice in what I do, I've about 30 years of ministry, and one of the things that I've noticed over a period of time, particularly in the Black community, was that there's some things that keeps people from experiencing their spiritual life, their spiritual health, to the fullness of some of the promises that we've been given. In addition to all of the things that were happening in people's lives, and in mine as well, that were happening in people's lives that they just couldn't get over. And so I committed my heart and mind to try to figure out what that is, how that works. I served in the military as a mechanic, and I'm by trade a carpenter. So I like to figure out how things work and how to fix that. And so when I get a challenge, that's what I try to do. And so trying to figure out what that is, what are some of the causes, and how we can come up with some remedies in order to fix it, ultimately led me there, and ultimately into a conversation with the esteemed Dr. Bessel Vanderkalk here in Maryland. And so running into him and hearing about sharing with him what I did for a living, and hearing him tell me how he envisioned it. The neuroscience, the medical view of trauma, but in particularly what he said about spirituality and how that when a person is traumatized or triggered, the part of the brain responsible for spirituality also goes offline as well. And spiritual people's spiritual disciplines are no longer effective as long as they're triggered. And so those kinds of liturgies, those kinds of things are ineffective. Bible study, or those kinds of things that replicate talk therapy are insufficient as they are to do that. So giving my heart to try to understand what are some other modalities out there that can get around that and get a person activated and restore their regulation, right? And so being principle driven, learning to think schema wise when it comes to values and those kinds of things, learning to use how you are in the present to fix some of those things that have happened to you, ultimately is what led me to forward facing.
Amazing. I absolutely love it. Oh, zoom, zoom, zoom. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. And this, and we talked about it in this meeting. I would say one of the godfathers, right? of trauma it's amazing, right? And to have
Hmm.
that conversation with him to talk about the importance of that spirituality, that how important that tool is. And in our conversation earlier, we were talking about how overseas, right, in terms of Africa and the countries in West Africa and throughout there, one of the things that they have been doing, right, is looking at the biopsychosocial with a little s, because as countries who are rooted in spirituality and religion, they understood that when something is off, it impacts the entire concept of how they view themselves, how they interact with the God or the person or the thing that they believe in, and their approach to Bible studies and reading and and filling themselves up with the connection that they had, right? And so to talk about it here, right? Because now this is something that is being looked at here. It's amazing, right? To having the conversation about how trauma impacts in a holistic way, right? Because before it was no, trauma can impact here and then here, that was a conversation before. But in reading the data, right, and reading what Dr. Gentry said and how it impacts your whole process, right, is
Yes.
it's
Yes.
amazing to understand. So how do you see this approach, right, incorporating the little s, or even though I think it's the powerful s, the little s, into a true community resiliency approach to a community who has been exposed to generational trauma? Like, how does that look like utilizing that?
Well, I think that it's important to pick this apart a little bit in order to understand some of the individual elements of the values that we care about, and then try to conceptualize how we can go about it from that perspective, right? So a cake has basic 5 elements, right? You got your flour, you got your sugar, you got your milk, you got your eggs, and your oil source, butter. And when put together and put under a heat source, it turns into a cake. Now you can add other stuff to the cake, right? But if you take any one of those ingredients out of there, out of that 5 categories of mix, it will turn into something else. Without the milk, without an egg, without that same mix would not be a cake. It'll turn into a muffin. It can turn
Right.
into bread. It can turn into a tortilla or something different, but it's not a cake. You got to have these 5 basic ingredients. And one of the things that's important to us is tolerance. Low frustration tolerance, having a high, not low frustration tolerance, but having a high ability in order to take things as they come, not to allow when bad things come to frustrate you. We're big on attunement, right? Being in connection with one another, and having the ability to feel each other, to feel each other's feelings, and to stay in connection. Affiliation, having the ability to be a part of something that's important, something that's meaningful, something that's eventually, I call essentially eternal. We care about families. We care about being good to one another and being part of something that's meaningful in this world. Regulation, having the ability to stay calm under pressure, having the ability to not get your circuits fried when things happen to you, having the ability to have the self control and not blow up on people that get back there and push your buttons. And then finally, attachment, being able to be intimate with people, having the ability to get past yourself and get past your own sense of being, and being able to communicate intimately with someone else. Well, those are the 5 basic ingredients: attachment, regulation, affiliation, attunement, and tolerance. And interestingly, when I began to study that and understand what that means, those are the things that go offline when you're hurt, when you're triggered. You're not trying to attach to people. You're trying to get away, because you see people as a threat, right? You become dysregulated. You're ready to fight at a moment's drop of the dime, right? You're
Right.
constantly being vigilant and on alert, waiting for the next shoe to drop, never knowing when, but always ready, right? You become dysregulated, affiliated. You don't want to be around other people. You want to be alone to yourself because they hurt me and I'm trying to stay away from
Mhm.
them. I know I won't hurt me. I know how to treat myself right. But then being in that kind of wall turns it later into a prison, right? Attunement, we're out of whack. We stop being able to understand people. We become suspicious. Instead of feeling and giving people the benefit of the doubt, we second guess them, third guess them, fourth guess them. Build a tower and put a moat with alligators and defend it with weapons, so that they don't get close to us anymore. And
Right.
then low frustration tolerance. Because things have happened and we're wound up too tight, the slightest little thing that happens suddenly takes us back to that place in our head and in our mind where it looks like a big issue. And so that's what happens when trauma occurs. It really affects those five pieces. And interestingly enough, when I noticed that, it was Dr. Eric Gentry in his book, talked about these five things in particularly, and his forward facing model honors those things. It teaches you how to be faithful to those things. The first, to cement them, right? Learn what they are, to cement them into your character and really work with them and understand them and how they relate to your functioning, how they add value to your functioning, and then what trauma does to that. So that's how I sort of envision that, and why it's so important for us, because those are the very things that make us who we are. We're people that love to laugh, that love to just talk and be in each other's company. Those are some things that have come to us down from the past, and basically since the first day we appeared on Earth. And I think that when we get back to those things, we're true people again.
Listen, I totally agree, and I love it how you broke it down in ingredients, because one of the things that our Black and Brown communities, right, pride
Hmm.
themselves in is the fact that they're collective, despite
Yeah,
what they are experiencing.
yeah,
Like, no, we can still make a cake, right? We can still
yeah.
figure out how to make something out of this,
We're stuck in
despite
the center.
all the things, right? With all the things going on, I know how to make this. We can make this. And I think that attunement, right? The 5 points, right, are so important that I feel like it got lost along the way, right? That they have seen it, because as a professional working with communities like this, I think that you are in this default, right? That you just do something
Yep,
because it's been done, but you don't really understand why you're really doing it and how
yep,
important this little piece thing is, right? And so understanding that and looking at what you mentioned, and then looking at the barriers and the gaps that this community continues to see, how would kind of encourage someone who is wanting to work with this type of population, right? Whatever population it may be, in a community, in a collective sense, that has experienced so much trauma. I mentioned earlier to you that I used to work with traffic victims and
yes,
help them reintegrate back into a home, into a system where they have left and they have not been there for a while, because a lot of things have happened. And then how to incorporate a healing approach, right, into how they when they're reintegrating, and then also look at the community, the collective group as a whole, while that person is trying to heal, and the other group is trying to understand how this healing process happened, right?
Right.
So how would you recommend, or how would you encourage someone who is going through something like that, right? Someone who is trying to go through the process of healing, the forward facing me, right? Where you are looking at yourself and looking at these processes and making a code of honor for yourself, and all these different things that a forward facing institute encouraged you, and then also Dr. Gentry's book encourages you to do. But how do you encourage that as a healing individual within a collective group that is so traumatized? How do you tell me a little bit more? I know
Well,
it's a lot, but
yeah, well, you got to know when you're in need of help. You got to know when you're in trouble, right? I recently got over a cold, right? And so there are remedies and things that you can do on your own. I call it the low hanging fruit. There's some things and some symptoms that you can go through, and those kinds of things that you can self treat. But then higher things that have persisted for a while, you probably need a little bit of help. Those are the kinds of things that you want to seek a forward facing coach, or what I call expanding your treatment team. Once your medicines on the things that you're able to get your hands on at the store no longer work, your visit to the pharmacy is no longer effective, then it's time to get some hospital grade kinds of medications, and get a specialist on the case. And so I'm reminded of the story of the man who fell in the hole. He fell in the hole, and he kept screaming to the top of the hole for help. A doctor walked by and said, "I can't help you, but I can help you with the pain," and threw down a prescription. And then a psychologist walked by and he said, "Well, I can't help you." And then he threw down a treatment plan. And then a preacher came by and he said, "Well, I can't help you either." And he threw down a prayer. And not so long after that, his best friend walked by and he looked down and he said, "What are you doing down there?" He says, "I'm stuck. I can't get out." His best friend immediately jumped down in the hole. And he said, "Oh my goodness, what are you doing? Why did you jump down here? Now we're both stuck." And his best friend said, "No, we're not, because I fell in this hole before and I know the way out." And so this is exactly what forward-facing coaches are about. We understand what we've ourselves have been through. We've worked through our own issues with ourselves and with some consultation of others, and we know the way out. We know how to find out which one of these ingredients are affecting you most. Is it an attachment issue? Are you having an attunement problem? Is this a regulation issue? And if so, this is how I worked it out, and this might serve to also help you out. It's a little something I also learned from my time in recovery, right? And then becoming a recovery supervisor. You got to work through your own stuff first. And if everybody's judgment day honest, if we were judgment day honest, we all have been through some things, and how we have overcome those things makes us a friend who gets in the hole with you to show you the way out. I don't know if I'm doing that justice, Jenny, but
I was just
that's
going
how
to
I,
ask her.
yeah,
I was
that's how
just
I
about
see
to
it.
ask her. Yeah, I was just about to ask you, Jenny, like, the board that you're creating, that you and Dr. Gentry are creating for the Forward Facing Institute. Why did you think that Chaplain Xavier Justice was such an important component?
Well, if we're going to be really straightforward, first of all, Dr. Gentry and I are very, very, very white. As about as like my dad used to say, we tanned by the moon. And so first of all, I love the brother. Second of all, it's about knowing where my strengths end and my awareness ends and another person begins. And that there's communities, so I can speak very powerfully into the adoption community. I can speak very powerfully into the special needs community. and other communities because I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I know some of the agony and some of the joy, and I don't have that lived experience for other things. And so when it comes to marginalized communities, especially when there are brown and Black leaders and people of color, ultimately the ethos of forward facing is that we want it to be community driven by the leaders of those communities, not ourselves and whoever that ourself is coming in as the expert. But no, really, these truths are transient, they're universal, and yet each community, each culture, and even internationally that adapts them, that adopts them, they're going to get their own flavor. You know, if you hear Dr. Gentry train and you hear I train, they're going to be similar with the principles, but they're also going to be very different because of our life experience. And it's so really, Xavier was our first find as far as, okay, who do we have a mutual admiration for, who has some leadership and some knowledge of his or her community so that they can take forward facing and then help us to be able to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Listen, great find. Perfect mix and ingredient to the forward facing institute family and the forward movement of what you guys want to do, especially looking at what Dr. Gentry wants to do in the next 5 years, or in the lifetime he thinks that he won't see, right? Which is already happening. But I think that Chaplain Xavier Justice is a great component to this movement because you know, one of the things in working with internationally and working with organizations in different countries, one of the things that I've seen is the stigma, right? It's not that mental health is taboo, which is. That's not the biggest stigma. The biggest stigma in terms of incorporating a trauma approach or mental health approach is that they don't want you to come in and oppress them. They don't want you to come in and be where you come in and marginalize them, right? Because they've experienced that throughout history. And so one of the things, even if it's a tool like this, right? I've noticed that you can't come in that way. And so I love what you said, Jenny, that, you know, we don't want to come in and say, this is what is done. We want to incorporate an individual who understands and is part of that culture so that they can bring in the tool, which is why, again, I absolutely love you guys' approach and how you guys are doing this, because that is something that was constantly being done, and it was constantly being affecting the foundation of what mental health is and the foundation of what trauma support looks like, right? Overseas, anywhere. Like, oh, I'm going to give you this tool and I'm going to help you because I see the problem that you have, instead of actually saying, I just want to just have a conversation. Let me find out what it is that you really need and what you really want, and then go from there, and let's try to implement this. Just because a person looks thirsty doesn't mean that that's the first thing that they want, you know? And so I love that this is the approach that we're taking. And so,
Can I
Chaplain
add one
Justice?
more thing?
Okay, go ahead.
There. And really, historically, when we do that, even if it's with the intention of helping and healing, ultimately it's re-traumatizing.
Yeah.
And that's how, with the best intentions. And then the other little bitty bit that I missed about why Xavier's an important part of our team is that liaison between the mental health community and people of faith and the clergy community, to help them understand and realize that this is not something, this is completely parallel. This is completely fit into your worldview of your faith that can help your people, your clergy members, be able to heal and then actually be able to access. So I know he'll reach more about that later, but that's so huge.
And if you want to start sharing about that a little bit right now, that'd be great. Before I jump in with asking you another question, please share a little bit about that.
Well, the research tells us that people go to their member of clergy first when they're in trouble. And so by far and large, and so like it or not, clergy are part of the continuum of care. Most of them aren't aware of their role, the importance of their role. And I think that's part of why we're doing what we're doing to make them aware, and to then not just give them an awareness, right? That's almost like thoughts and prayers, right? We actually want to do something, and having the tools to be able to understand what's being presented to you when a client is in front of you, but also have the tools to be able to actually make a difference, make a difference in that person's life. Once again, to help them jump down in the hole with them, instead of sending a treatment plan or prayer. Those kinds of things. And so I think that once ministers understand that superpower that they have, and how that that part of the whole continuum of care is active at one time, no one particular craft has it all, that there is a positive contribution that can be given from this piece. I think that invitation can also help. Now, just because they have it doesn't mean that they're trained, doesn't mean that they're ready, right? And that's where forward facing comes in, and that's part of one of the work that I want to do, is to be able to give them the tools to do that. And unlike some of the other things that as you know, I've gone places and have done plenty of trainings. Forward facing in Dr. Gentry's model serves as one of the better ones that I've seen. And you got to know me as a person. You just really got to know me as a person, that when I tell you that if this was some junk, I would say, listen, girl, stay away from it, and I'm just not that kind of person that if it just doesn't work, that I would say, I would say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then this other piece that I wanted to say, just like I said, once the Joint Commission has told us that people have a right that to seek the advancement of their spiritual care as part of the continuum of medical services, I think that's extremely important, that a shift in the consciousness and the shift in how we provide services, that a problem doesn't rest just in one domain, that it's not just a physical issue, that it's not just an emotional or psychological, psychiatric, a mental health issue, but there's or some cognitive intellectual deficits. There's also a spiritual component, and that's where our ministers get to shine. If they learn how to understand how to assess what they're looking at, and give them the correct tool in order to go at it, I think we can get some good work done and provide some good holistic, integrative, complementary care.
I told you that I won't do a praise dance on the camera, but I'm just so excited. I'm just geeking out because, as I mentioned earlier, my dissertation, I think I mentioned it earlier with you, but I don't know if Jenny knew. My dissertation focuses on the integration of an approach that kind of basically supports the integration of Indigenous practices, right, into treatment plans. Like, how do you incorporate the spiritual, the religious aspect, the traditional cultural aspect into treatment plan to be able to support the individual through the process of healing? And so, getting to the phase where I've collected the data, so I was able to speak with psychologists and social workers in Ghana, but also I was able to speak with Indigenous leaders, right? Reverends, pastors, who, some who understand the importance of we are kind of treating our people and providing them services by following the biblical approach to healing, right? Fasting, praying, chaining so that demonic spirits can come out. There's like the branch um, on the skin to kind of like cleanse your, all of these things. And a lot of individuals, some got healed, some didn't. They some of them noticed that something else was missing, right? They worked on the little s, but they didn't have the biopsychosocial, right? And so they're like, we're wanting to know how to work and collaborate and bring these two together. And in data, the research constantly, if you look for the past decade or so, says the same recommendation is the same. More collaboration needs to be done with indigenous leaders, pastors, reverends, leaders like that, who connect with mental health professionals, psychologists, social workers, psychiatrists, so that they can find a better way to approach the mental health need of the people, right? And that's why I did my study, because I'm like, how is it that we're constantly saying the same recommendation, but nothing's being done? And so in asking and collecting the data with the people, one of the things that they mentioned, right, was, no, we know that there's a need to collaborate these two realms, these two worlds, right, together to be able to treat mental health, be able to treat trauma. But there is a bigger gap, right, that we don't really address. And that is our tools are too westernized. And it does not respect the foundation of the indigenous people, the cultural people, the traditional people. And so, we were talking earlier about how there has to be a better way to incorporate tools that that is respectful of that type of need, right? Because one of the things that they mention is also that they use the tools we have here, the ACEs and the 5 elements and the 12-step programs, and kind of like revamp it or figure out how to shift it around so that it can kind of give them what they need, but they feel like they're still missing something, right? And I say that because I feel like this is it, right? I feel like this approach works for that. And so when I work with individuals both in Ghana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and other countries, this is the tools that I'm trying to show them. Like, listen, I know it comes from America, but just give it a little try. Because I have to approach it that way, because they're like, it comes from America, that Western mentality. I don't want, it doesn't respect my culture. And I'm like, no, trust me, it kind of does. It really does, you know? And so, this is a great tool that can be implemented in any culture, in any country, because it doesn't dismiss who you are as a person. It doesn't dismiss the beliefs and cultures that you believe in. It actually highlights it. It actually says, no, this is the most important thing about you. And in order to understand this, in order to understand how we're going to deal with this problem, we need to understand this. And that's the holistic you, right? So I really love your approach, Chaplain Justice, to this and what you're going to be bringing into the Forward Facing Institute in regards to the small, powerful S. That in addressing trauma and how to equip, soldiers, professionals to go out there, and if they come up with a client that is, something is missing, but they know there's like this energy and need, that they know that this is a great tool to implement for that. So
Thank you.
hats
And
off to
I
you.
just wanted to speak briefly to something. I love how you said that our people and the things that have come to us from the ancestors, and how we're still in touch with those things. There are emerging therapies now called the body therapies. It's a bottom up approach, right? We're so used to these top down approaches and side to side approaches that we forget that there are things that also have an ameliorative healing effect. Music, dance, getting together, clapping your hands, getting your body moving. These are the kinds of things that we know helps discharge that deleterious energy, right? And so when the foremost known world scholar tells you that talk therapy and the like are ineffective, then these are some hard things for our for clergy to understand. Well, why isn't prayer enough? Well, why isn't reading your Bible and scripture memory? Why is that not enough? And it's very hard because the training came from a century that just didn't have this kind of awareness. And I with now my pastor, Bishop Al Harris at Deliverance Headquarters, he's definitely emerging, and he sort of understands that. And we give space for an opportunity for people to be expressive, to be able to share and to talk about. We call it testimony service, being able to say what's on your heart and what's on your mind. And then if people need an opportunity, people don't tarry anymore, Seth. We used to tarry. We don't tarry anymore.
We don't.
We don't tarry no more. But if you need to dance that thing out, sometimes the pressures of the week and sometimes the things that you've been through, and you start thinking about the past, it makes you want to shout, and so it makes you want to be expressive. And sometimes
Yeah.
you need to hug, and sometimes there needs to be a delay, because you don't need to hear a lecture at that point. You may not need to hear a sermon, but you need somebody to sit there with you and just be there. Not necessarily have to speak, but have that empathic presence, that sense
Yeah.
of presence that elevates mood, right? Those are the kinds of things, that synergy, and those are the kinds of things that we have to help ministers understand. And those skills and domains already rest within the acumen of ministers, but how to use that in a therapeutic way is where we make the that's where the magic happens, when we make that connection. And so as I said, when he says those kinds of liturgies are ineffective, who are we to second guess Bessel van der Kolk? And it's so I agree that, and I'm just thrilled to be here and to be able to share that piece. It's why I'm doing my doctorate. It's what I've decided to give my life to, and I believe in it so effectively that I'm willing to forsake all else to
Mm.
bring this piece to the world.
I mean, that's perfect. I mean, let me tell you, I have a quote right in front of me, and it says, "Today you are exactly where you are supposed to be. What happens tomorrow is up to you," right? And that's such a great quote, because the fact that you mentioned that this is your life work, that this is what you're going to be doing because you saw that this is a need, and that that by you doing this work is going to impact so many people tomorrow, and it's going to change so many people, and that wave is going to carry. you know um People really think that I'm weird. I really don't care. It happens. um but I am so excited to be done with this doctorate, right? Like, not only because your girl is tired, but because I want to be able to be done with this portion and now work with the indigenous leaders, and because I have made myself available to them, and now say, hey, I actually want to work with you in creating a group that brings the different peoples to this table, and not condemn you or judge you because you're taking prayer as the only way to do this, but because let's look at treatment from the spiritual sense, and then go those way, right? Instead of bringing the other way, the top down, bottom up, whatever way you want to look at it. you know, and connecting with a couple of these indigenous leaders, they're so open to it. And so I'm excited for that portion because I, you're right. The individuals are ready, right? This approach is necessary because the reason why so many people go to religious leaders first is because they encourage this sort of sense of relief. Like, you can come here and just cry. You can come here and just shout and praise and dance and lose your mind because you either had a good day or you just like, I don't know what's happening, right? That sense of like connection, hugging someone. And I feel like we have missed out on that in terms of our treatment approach, right? And to see it happening, right? Because I was invited to a session and to see how the biopsychosocial with the little s was incorporated. Oh my God, it was so beautiful, right? But they've been doing this because they saw the need of their people and said, we need to implement something that's useful. Let's do this. And so I love the fact that we are starting to get into this, you know, like you mentioned earlier, our founders of trauma before us got us to a point where they could. Our step is to take that and continue on. That's what I mean. That's just how families are, anyways, right? We do better than our parents, and so this movement towards trauma, this forward movement, right, towards getting a little better and understanding trauma, is where we are now, because now we are incorporating the neuropsychological aspect of things and the energy aspect of it, but making sure that we are centered to understand that these two things actually are more aligned than we think, right? So I'm really excited about it. I'm definitely going to be bringing you back because you are just amazing. and,
I
and your
appreciate it.
energy is so great. And I really do want us to talk um, in more specific about, you know, because you know this month is African American month, Black History Month, whichever,
Absolutely.
you know, there's both ways of saying it. It's still the same thing, just bringing power to our people. And then of course, Latino Hispanics month is next month. And
Right.
so, you know, being both Afro Latina, you know, these 2 months I shall be celebrating and bringing awareness to the need of our people from both these cultures. And so, can you just say one thing, right, that you want the African Americans, the African people, the people of color to know this one thing in terms of trauma, in terms of forward facing, in terms of all of these things, right? That they can take with them and use as a tool for either encouragement or for a reminder of where they are and where they want to be or where they should be. Can you give us something for like encouragement for that community?
Is my turn?
Yes, this is for
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Absolutely. I want to say that help is on the way. I just want to say that our ancestors, we exist because of the ancestors, right? And the sacrifice and the seeds that they have planted, and those things are not overthrown because we've been through a little trouble. And in times past, that trouble has gotten us down. It's short circuited. It's caused us to get off into to various different things. But through trauma treatment and through the understanding of who you are, that you can be put back together again, and help is on the way. And I just want you to know that the Forward Facing Institute hears you, and I hear you, and I know you hear them as well, Seth. And the work that we're doing is all for that reason. It's all to help someone become more, to become self-regulated, right? To become more attuned and attached, to become more tolerant and affiliated, when we get those ingredients back together, then you'll find your purpose will come back online. When we get that deleterious energy out, when we work through, name the things that have happened, put a name on it. And once that
Yes.
has been named, then we begin to actually take positive, affirmative, measurable steps to see those things removed, and we can go on and realize and fulfill the potential that we have, and hopefully the call of God and the will of God on earth for the reason He put us here. Help is on
Beautiful,
the way.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This is this is what I want people to hear, you know, and to understand that an organization, right? People created an organization for Facing Institute that understood the need of what we needed and said, yes, we can provide a very therapeutic approach to things, but then that dismisses who you are. We are wanting to create something for you that looks at you as a whole. And here we have it. Here, we're gonna put it together, and this is what we're gonna give you. We're gonna give you the Forward Facing Institute that looks at you, looks at your traditions, looks at your culture, looks at your history, looks at your strengths, your weaknesses, and encourages you to create a foundation, right? A new foundation, a healthier foundation that makes you aware of where your triggers are, what things you're needing, and brings light to the things that align you, that regulate you, right? And I love the fact that this institute understood that need and incorporated it in every aspect. So not only are you getting the the traumatologist and the amazingness of Dr. Gentry, which he's amazing, but you're also getting um, Chaplain Justice, who is like, hey, yes. And let's look at that spiritual sense. Let's look at that rapport within that alignment with your energy and how you see and your beliefs of your history, your generational history, right? But let's look at who you are and where you are right now, because that is also important on the way you treat yourself, right? And how you treat others in terms of therapy or whatever field you're in. How do you support yourself and others? And I love that this institute has been able to do that and has been able to highlight this the sense of hope, which Jenny, I don't know if people have seen the video, we were tagged in the bottom, but her video about hope is so amazing. Just looking at it and breaking it down, especially in this month for people, for our people to understand. This institute understood our needs as a people, and they said we are going to be intentional about addressing it and providing you with a certificate that allows you to leave the school, right, the institute, and understand what it is you need to do and not feel as if you're doing something wrong, you're not prepared, you forgot, you didn't do, like, they're going to make sure you are completely prepared to be able to go out there and treat trauma and do support groups for one another in whatever area you may be in whatever country that you may be in. And I am an advocate for this, and I will wiggle myself in this institute whichever way. Listen, I told them that they can't get rid of me, and my audience knows that I speak truth. Because when I see something like you, Chaplain Justice, when I know that it's good, I tell you it's good. If it ain't good, I be like, listen, don't even waste your money, right?
Don't
and
do it. Don't
and
do it.
right, and this is something that I believe in and something that I use and I recommend to people all the time. So thank you guys for
Thank
allowing
you.
me to interview you guys, right? And to take a moment to interview you, Chaplain Justice, because the things you are doing and you're about to do, the book that you're going to write, and the articles that you're about to publish. Yeah, I made that public. You're welcome, America. You're welcome, the world. It's coming. It's going to be great. It's going to be
Yes.
great because not everyone understands the importance of that little s that's more powerful than people give it credit to. And for you to get that and for you to say, let me get this information out to people so that they understand a little bit better, that no, they're not crazy. That yes, prayer, and you know that you feel like you need more because you need that little bit more, and so people need to hear that, and I'm excited to get that notification when that book hits.
Mwah.
So thank you so much, everyone, and I'm gonna go ahead and just hit the recording. Thank you, guys.